memorable faces, memorable makeup. And they know exactly how to scare you. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 examples of practical movie monster makeup.
You're too old to stop me! You're all too old!
For this list, we're looking at those classic examples where practical effects experts transformed actors into the stuff of nightmares. To count, the terrifying use of makeup effects must be applied to an actual human actor, so animatronic monsters will not count. Number 10. The Grant monster, Slither.
You did a real nice job decorating, baby. You like these memories? Yeah.
In today's CGI-heavy world, exceptional practical effects, especially in horror films, really stand out. James Gunn's now cult film harkens back to some old-school 80s gross-out practical magic.
You tried to kill me and run off with Party!
Poor Grant ends up in the wrong town at the wrong time, as a bunch of alien slugs decide to take over the world. Grant ends up being the first victim infected by the slugs, as he slowly becomes a tentacled monster and infects everyone else.
I'm here for you.
The Emmy-winning makeup team of Todd Masters and Dan Rebert took home a Saturn Award for their repulsively fantastic work here. Just don't watch without a barf bag.
I'll keep growing till I'm everywhere, till I'm all that is!
Number 9. Eric, the Phantom of the Opera. You can't have a makeup effects list like this without mentioning Lon Chaney. Nicknamed the Man of 1,000 Faces, Chaney was famous for creating his own makeup effects and transforming his face into many creatures and monsters with very little makeup or prosthetics. His most famous performance, after being completely unrecognizable as the Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 years earlier, was as the tragic and terrifying Phantom. Although the character is remembered for his broken mask, Chaney gave him new life when Eric's frightening face is revealed. It especially took audiences by surprise, considering that his hideous face was kept a huge secret until the film's premiere. Number 8. Darkness, Legend.
The last unicorn dies tonight.
The legendary Tim Curry is no stranger to heavy makeup, what with movies like Stephen King's It under his belt. But he's practically unrecognizable as the Lord of Darkness in this overlooked fantasy from Ridley Scott. His goal is to bring eternal darkness to the world by killing off all the unicorns. But all he succeeds in doing is bringing eternal nightmares to his viewers.
Come, Legend. The birth of a new world awaits your stroke.
It took over 5 hours to apply Curry's makeup, and that dedication really shows. Oscar nominated for Best Makeup Effects, Legend now has a well-deserved cult following, and that's largely thanks to its unforgettable villain.
All things change, lady. The dreams of youth are the regrets of maturity.
Number 7. The Pale Man, Pan's Labyrinth.
No comáis ni bebáis nada durante vuestra estancia y aseguraos de volver antes de que caiga el último grano de arena.
Director Guillermo del Toro is a lover of practical makeup effects, as seen in his Hellboy movies.
You know it'll kill me, don't you?
He also knows when to seamlessly mix in some CGI. The creatures he brings to life in this Spanish fantasy tale are breathtaking to say the least.
Iréis a un lugar muy peligroso. Tened cuidado, lo que ahí dormita no es humano.
Although Fawn is incredible and the film's centerpiece, the Pale Man will give you nightmares and makes it impossible to believe that there's an actor under that makeup. But there is, and the actor behind both these creatures is none other than Doug Jones, a modern-day Lon Chaney and frequent collaborator of Del Toro. Number 6. David Kessler, An American Werewolf in London.
Go away. Please. Go away.
This horror comedy hybrid became the first film to ever win the Academy Award for Best Makeup.
I know where you can get a gun.
Don't I need a silver bullet or something?
Oh, be serious, would you?
It was also the first of several wins for makeup effects master Rick Baker, who concocted quite possibly the most famous werewolf transformation ever to grace the silver screen. The film follows the unlucky David as a werewolf attacks him. His friend is left dead, and David's left in a hairy situation.
Jack.
Mr. Kessler?
Although more of a dark comedy, the transformation scene was one of the most terrifying movie moments of the 80s. To this date, we're still left wondering how exactly they pulled it off.
Run!
Number 5. Frankenstein's monster, Frankenstein.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Just like Lon Chaney, one of the pioneers of early cinematic makeup effects was Jack Pierce. This special effects genius was nicknamed the Monster Maker, having been responsible for most of the creatures in Universal Studios' golden years of horror filmmaking.
Shut off the light!
His most famous and most recognizable work was Frankenstein's monster in the 1931 classic, transforming Boris Karloff into the stoic but deadly creature come back from the dead. Although a huge departure from the source material written by Mary Shelley, Pierce's makeup has ironically become the most iconic version of the famous literary monster.
As I said before, I say again, here's to a son, to the house of Frankenstein.
Number 4. Seth Brundle, Brundlefly, the Fly.
My ear. No.
David Cronenberg's The Fly took a classic B-movie and turned it into a masterpiece of body horror.
What does the disease want?
It wants to turn me into something else.
Jeff Goldblum plays Seth Brundle, a scientist who's working on a teleportation device.
Human teleportation, molecular decimation, breakdown, and reformation is inherently purging. It makes a man a king. From the moment I walked out of the pod, I felt like $1 million. You know, I think I am going to have a...
When Dr. Brundle tests it on himself and his DNA gets mixed with that of a fly that snuck into his machine, we watch in dread as he spends the entire film gruesomely and gradually transforming into a fly.
Oh, I think it's showing itself as a bizarre form of cancer.
The film received an Oscar for its makeup, awarded to the duo of Chris Wallace and longtime Cronenberg collaborator Stephen Dupuis.
I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. Perhaps she'll die.
Who would have ever thought a fly could be so disgusting and empathetic at the same time?
Oh, that's disgusting.
Number 3. Regan MacNeil, The Exorcist. The face that made multiple audience members faint upon its release, young Regan, possessed by the demon Pazuzu, has become one of the most iconic images in horror film history, and perhaps cinematic history in general.
Where's Regan? In here with us.
Although this classic tale of demonic possession received many accolades, the makeup was largely overlooked.
La plume de ma tante. Ah!
How long are you planning to stay in Reagan?
Until she rots and lies stinking in the earth.
Many years later, Dick Smith, the genius behind The Exorcist, as well as The Godfather, Taxi Driver, and Death Becomes Her, received an honorary Oscar for his varied body of work.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Number 2, Freddy Krueger, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Please, God.
This is God.
What started as an idea in Wes Craven's mind became a reality in the hands of seasoned makeup effects specialist David Miller.
Watch this.
In horror cinema, your story needs to be just as scary as your visuals, and Freddy Krueger's burned and scarred face is as terrifying and iconic as they get. After being the star of one of the most successful horror film franchises of all time, and first appearing in the 1984 original, it's sometimes hard to see actor Robert Englund's face without picturing the terrifying makeup that accompanied his most famous creation.
Come to Freddy.
Before we dig into our top pick, here are some honorable mentions.
Sweet, innocent Jason. My only child. Jason.
Do you know how the orcs first came into being? They were elves once.
Number 1, Pinhead, Hellraiser.
We have such sights to show you.
If this list has proven one thing, it's that makeup effects artists do not often get the credit they deserve. Having learned his trade on the sets of Star Wars and Alien, though his model building went uncredited for those, Bob Keane built a name for himself after teaming up with horror legend Clive Barker for this gothic indie gem.
I want to hear him confess himself. Then, maybe.
His makeup creation was so effective that without his Pinhead makeup on, nobody recognized Doug Bradley at the film's post-production party.
No, don't do that.
Although Keane's later work on Nightbreed deserves much praise, the image of Pinhead rising from his hellish slumber, alongside his fellow demonic Cenobites, will forever be burned into the minds of all filmgoers.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Do you agree with our list?
I like you my gifts.
Which monster makeup effects make you look twice, or made you look away in fear? For more chilling top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.